What's up, guys? Welcome back to Classic Octane. I am Taylor. So today we are actually jumping on a new project. So this is a bike that I've owned for probably close to a year, I would think. It was in my storage unit, so at least 8 or 9 months. You guys have seen it in the background. I have talked about it before, but we haven't actually started working on it until today. So basically what I've decided is this front lift here is going to be the one that I work on customer bikes. Like that's a customer CB500. I have another customer bike I'm actually going up to Dallas to pick up on Friday, the Friday after Thanksgiving. So once I have that bike, you know, this is where the main customer work will be done. And that obviously takes precedent over my own personal bikes. This back lift is where these kind of bikes will be done. So this is a 72 CB500. Again, I have talked about it on the channel before. I bought this bike at auction, and unfortunately this is one of those auction scenarios where the deal was a little bit too good to be true, and unfortunately this motor is completely seized. So I don't know if it's seized because there's a rod broken on the inside. I don't know if it's just seized because, you know, it was stored. This is exactly how I picked up the bike, with no spark plugs in it. So maybe water got down in the cylinder and just rusted it, and it's something that we may be able to clean up, get away with just a top-end rebuild. I don't know, and that's gonna be kind of the name of this video, or the name of the game today, I should say, is start to dive in, figure out just how bad it is, because worst case scenario, I have a donor bike over here, CB500, that has a motor that turns over. We could always just swap in a 550 motor in here, but I would really like to keep this original engine if possible, because as you can see, this bike is really clean and really original, and I want to keep it that way. I don't want to go and mess things up and start to swap stuff around, and if I can keep it, you know, with a lot of the factory items as possible, I'd like to do so. So we'll figure that out here in a little bit. I'll kind of give you guys a good once over of the rest of the bike. Odometer shows 8,000 miles. I have no reason to think that that's not accurate, just because of how clean this bike is. Original seat cover does have a little tear in it. I'll probably just get a little sewing kit or something and bring that back together, because the rest of it is in really good shape. So I'd like to keep that original. It does have these panniers on it, which is pretty unique. I haven't actually had a bike with these on them before. This bike was definitely stored in like the desert or something, because there's just like dirt, sand, kind of caked into a lot of the little cracks and crevices. So we'll have to clean all that out. I'll have to decide if I want to keep those on. We'll probably take them off for now, just because I'm going to need to be able to access that rear wheel and everything anyway. And we can decide, like, maybe we try to paint match them. Maybe we just, you know, leave them off, keep them for another project. I don't know. It would be kind of cool to have a bike that had storage on it and that I could ride, you know, if I decided to keep this bike and take it to the post office or whatever and be able to store stuff in it. So we'll decide what we want to do with that at a later date. The only other thing that I know of that's an issue is the paint on the tank is obviously faded, and I don't consider that a problem. I kind of liked the patina look, but there were some like letters in it. It looks like originally there was 3 letters, and I don't, these are like not stuck on. It's almost like rusted in. I don't know if it was like a metal letter that, you know, was stuck on there over time. And it looks like somebody maybe wet sanded or something to try and get them off, and it basically ate through and kind of exposed this more bluish color underneath. So I'm kind of open to suggestions on what you guys think we should do. If we should try and like get in here with some 1200 or 1500 grit sandpaper and kind of lightly fade this in, try to get rid of these letters and match this bluish patina kind of up here. I think that could be pretty cool. Of course, there's always the option to repaint it as well, but because the rest of the paint and everything is actually in really good shape, I wouldn't mind it just being like an all original clean bike with a like patinaed gas tank. So let me know, drop a comment what you guys think we should do with that. Everything else is original and kind of needs what you would expect it to need. We're gonna have to go through the carbs. We're gonna have to go through the inside of the tank. There's definitely some rust in there, so we'll have to, you know, fill it with some evapor rust and try and clean that out. And then everything else from a bike that, you know, has been sitting for decades, rebuild the brakes, all that kind of stuff as well. So let me get this thing up in the air, and we'll start to pull it apart and see if we can't figure out a way to free that motor up. So here she is up in the air, and you can tell like even the rubber on the fork boots is in good shape. I mean, the tires we're going to replace obviously just because they're old, but they're really not even that dry rotted. So I think this was stored maybe out in like West Texas in the desert, because the desert is, since it's very dry, it doesn't actually eat the rubber as bad. So, you know, it's sun faded, but I don't know, maybe it just got covered in dust, and it's kind of crazy. It's very interesting, the condition of this bike, because it's very well preserved. Like, it has some rust down here, but then like the condition of all of this is perfect. And like the carbs and everything aren't like heavily rusted. It's, I don't know, it's kind of blowing my mind. But a couple of months ago, probably 6 months ago, I did put some Marvel Mystery Oil down each cylinder in hopes that that would kind of free things up, and it has had no effect whatsoever. So whatever is stopping this motor from spinning is unfortunately a little bit more severe than just a light, you know, rust ring around the piston ring. So I think we're just going to go ahead and start to pull the top end of this off, and then we can decide, you know, the best course of action, whether that be a top end rebuild, whether that be a motor swap from one of my donor 550s. That is to be determined. So I'm going to get to work on pulling these panniers off. We'll pull the side covers, start to pull the intake carbs, get the gas tank out of the way, you know, just basically pull this top of the bike off so we can get access to the engine itself. Starting to pull side covers off and stuff, and you can see why I think it was stored in the desert. It's just like, anywhere that wasn't just pressure washed off by the auction house is just coated in this like dust. Did find some brake pads and 2 out of the 4 exhaust flanges. So hey, we're finding parts already. Look under the seat when I lift it. It's like a full-blown desert in there. Oh man. But luckily, it looks like all that actually protected a lot of this stuff. So it's in good shape despite it being just coated in whatever dust this is. So doing a little bit more digging, I just pulled the seat off, found like little pieces of the chain in this little baggie, the original little fuse holder. And then looking in the underside of the seat, there's this little compartment, and I found this little card that's for registration, and it's original 1976 registration, and there's the name on it. It's like Ralph H. Spear. And then if you look at the right here, it was RHS, Ralph H. Spear. So that's pretty cool. There's a good chance that I'm the second owner of this bike. I mean, you know, it was at the auction, but you know, there's a chance that the last time this bike was on the road was 1976 and was straight from Ralph to me. So I'm covering up the address and the rest of this stuff. I mean, I'm sure 1976, they probably don't live there anymore, but I'd rather just not show somebody else's info on the internet. But that's pretty cool, little original registration card from, you know, basically 50 years ago almost. So pretty cool little time capsule we're going through here. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to start to pull this off. I'm going to pull the intakes off, the tank, and we'll get ready to pull the carbs and stuff off, and then we can start to really dive in. Moving right along with disassembly. Got the stock intake out, which is a huge pain in the butt. Carbs are out. Very gummy, but complete, and we're definitely going to be able to bring those back with some ultrasonic cleaning and some vapor blasting. Assuming that there's no corrosion in the main jet, that tube that's kind of prone to getting corroded, but I think it'll be all right. Only time will tell. That'll be another video. So now that I have more access to this motor, I'm noticing that some of these screws or bolts are not tight, which means somebody has been in here before us. Assuming they were in here to try and figure out what this issue was. So I don't know if that's good news or bad news. Probably leans towards bad news because they may have discovered a large problem and then decided to give up on the project, but we shall see. You can see that this tack cable is not even bolted in either. So, all right. What do you say we pull this top cover off? We can check out the cam, and kind of see what's there, see if, you know, the cam chain is in terrible shape or bound up or something like that. I'll probably also go ahead and pull off the side covers on this side and that side as well, to see if we can get the motor to kind of turn over using one of those bolts. But valve cover is off and everything in here looks pretty clean. I mean, don't see any crazy damage or rust or anything like that. Ooh, hold on. Stand by. This valve with the little keeper and stuff, the whole valve spring is loose. That is not good. Well, it looks like the valve is still there. Oh, let's see if I lose some stuff. So the valve is still there. So that means it didn't drop down into the piston. So that's good. I mean, I guess it could have dropped down a little bit and then been jammed back up, but generally it gets bent in that case. So that's interesting. We'll have to find out where the rest of that piece is, because there was only one keeper. Here, it's over here. Yeah, so the keeper is that little piece in there, that little half C. There should be another one of those on the other side that goes around and connects into that little groove on the top of the valve. I don't see it down there. So did the person that was in here before us just not put it back in, or is it in the engine somewhere? That is to be determined. Still very much locked up. I'm going to pull these side covers off like I mentioned, so that I think we're actually going to want to do it on that side, so I can actually put a socket on there, see if I can get the motor to move at all with a wrench. Got the stator off, so we've got access to the inside. This is all so clean. So since that valve is still all the way up, I'm going to keep a close eye on it to make sure it doesn't drop down while I'm attempting to turn this over. So let's see. It'll turn over in any direction. Definitely not turning over that way. Okay, let's try the other way. If I go this way, I'm afraid I'm just going to loosen this bolt most likely. Yep. The bolt's just coming loose now. And I don't want to snap this bolt off either, so I don't want to go too ham on it, but yeah, she's not going anywhere. Okay. Using my flashlight, looking down these spark plug holes, I can definitely see a good amount of rust. There also seems to be some possible sand. So we're just gonna have to pull this head off, which is gonna prove to be difficult because I would need to be able to turn the engine to be able to get to these cam bolts. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So to be able to get to these bolts to take the cam gear off, what I'm probably gonna have to do is just break this cam chain. Using my little chain breaker that I would, use for the standard chains. Hopefully I have a little push pin that's small enough. Break this cam chain, and then we'll just get a replacement cam chain for it, should we be able to save this engine. Got the chain breaker in position. So you can see, I'm just going to try and push out one of those because I definitely, I was able to get to this bolt, obviously, because it's right here, but we can't get to the other bolt. So I'm going to set you guys up somewhere. Should really get a tripod or something. Wonder if I can just put you all, put you on this side so that you're not in the way. And we are going to see if we can just break one of these links. Because when you get a new cam chain, there's a new master link and stuff in there anyway. So it looks like it's pushing it. but I don't know if the tip of my chain breaker deal here is a little bit too big. You can see that link starting to come out. Wonder if that is enough for me to... You know what, I'm gonna have to get a punch. Here we go. Cam chain is broken. Now, I should be able to just pop this cam out, put it over on the table. Now I've removed all the little rubber sealing pucks, we'll call them, to gain access to all of the cylinder head bolts. So what I'm going to start doing is loosening these, but the book calls for loosening them in a crisscross pattern so that you don't loosen one side and it warps the head up. So I'll do like this corner, this corner, and like kind of just go back and forth across, loosening them little by little. Once they're all loose, then we can pull them all the way out. All right, let's see how tight these are going to be. Scary sound. All right, we got all the bolts undone. In theory, oh yeah, she's loose. Let's see how bad it is. Come on, you can do it. I wonder if I need to completely pull out this cam chain bolt. I'm gonna do it and see. Yeah, okay. Ooh. Yeah. Alrighty. Come on. Should have taken that clutch cable out of the way. Okay. Oh. Oh. Oh no. What is that? Well, there's your problem. Yeah, let me get something to wipe my finger off with and give you guys a close up of what we're looking at here. So, yeah, that is, some interesting substance. And this one's still got all the marble in it. Oh, what in the, oh no. Can you see? Oh my gosh, there's like an inch of like mud in there. Oh, this has not gone well. See how bad this side is. See, that's like the sand. Now that's not what you want to find inside your engine. Okie dokie. Well, I think that means we are going to need to. Ooh, that doesn't look very good. Interesting. Yeah. Okay, it's mostly just the gasket that's bad. Wow. So that is going to prove to make it quite difficult, I would imagine, for us to pull these cylinders off. I don't know. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and clean all of these off. And what we can do is get a piece of wood in here and try to hammer these down and see if we can free them up enough to be able to pull the cylinder off as well. And really get access to the pistons, because we're definitely going to need to get further than this to get this thing back up and running. So just out of curiosity, yeah, let me see if I can clean these off, all this goop out of here, and then we will see if we can get just a little bit deeper. I don't remember if you're supposed to have what looks like ground beef inside of your engine or not. Oh, somebody help me. Well, since I last left you, about an hour of time has elapsed, and we did break this number 4 piston. I think it was inevitable. I mean, it was just basically welded in there. I've also just started to mushroom this over because all of this is garbage. We're never going to reuse it. There's no point to keep it, so I don't really care if it gets messed up. So that's where we are now. We have the last couple of hits until hopefully this thing is free. There we go. Man, this thing is garbage. I don't think we're going to be utilizing this bottom end either, by the looks of it. And there they are. That one moves freely, that one moves all right. That one's locked onto the connecting rod. That one is also locked onto the connecting rod. I got number 4 piston freed up just enough to where if you have the pistons lined up, see if I can try and do this with one hand. Yeah, it will turn all the way over. But you know, we decided we're not going to use the bottom end just because you can't really see it, but there is some rust on the crank down there, and I just would not feel confident putting all the work into this without pulling that out and splitting the cases and actually making sure the bearings and stuff are good. It just wouldn't be worth putting a new top end on and then having rust in the bearings and just have it eat itself in the first 2 miles going down the road. Especially when I have a complete CB500 motor literally sitting right here. So that's probably going to be the next video. I'm going to pull the 500 motor out of this. We'll probably put it on the stand and just kind of go through it, make sure it turns over. It might be cool to go all the way to the point of getting it running on the stand. That's something I haven't done before. I can teach you guys about like the minimum amount of wiring needed to run a bike. We can put a little exhaust on it and everything on the stand and fire it up just to make sure everything is good before we put it in the bike. I want to put the 500 motor just because it'll be easier to match up, the clutch cable and that kind of stuff. And then I can take the 550 motor out of this bike and put it into that one, because that one's going to be a real custom build with a mono shock conversion and stuff. So it'd be cooler to put the 550 motor in that and keep this one that's going to be more of an original kind of restoration style with the 500 motor. Even though they are very similar, it'd be cooler if it just matched. So let me know what you guys think about this project. I've been excited to work on it. I've been sitting around looking at it for almost a year, like I said. So despite having the bad news of the motor not being good, I kind of assumed that anyway, just from shining that flashlight down the spark plug hole and seeing the cylinders full of rust and what looked like sand and dirt and stuff. Generally an engine's not going to run if that's what you're dealing with. So I appreciate you guys watching as always. It might be a week or two before I do another video on this bike, just because I do have the customer bikes coming in. I will show you guys the customer bike as soon as it gets here, and I'll see you guys then.